Okay, so welcome to Off Planet Radio, Off Planet TV sometimes. This will be audio only, and the energies are different. Gosh, what warfare we've been in for just like, well, what our friend Robert Phoenix talked about astrologically, and then the energies that have been nesting about different aspects of both our individual and collective lives and consciousness. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to explore the shamanic aspects, concepts of healing, concepts of where we are in time, and what we have to do to basically get through this cycle and extricate ourselves from the spin cycle of the matrix. With me is my co-host, Emily Moyer. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
And our guest tonight, Sethikus Boza from Black Earth Productions. And he is, I met Seth down at Free Your Mind in Philadelphia. We barely met each other. We actually met each other at the last possible moment of the event as he was going out and I was coming back into the venue to basically check out. So we missed each other all weekend, and at the last minute we had this amazing meeting under the canopy of the parking lot and embraced and kind of set up the motion for us to connect on another level. And so for the first time on Off Planet Radio, welcome Seth Boza.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome meeting you, man, how things came together like that. Because I was looking for you. I was on my way out to, go meet up with Mark Passio. His band was playing that night, and boom, you were right there. Just kept sending out that intention. It's like, I have no idea where this guy's at, but we are going to meet.
No, we were definitely just supposed to do that then and there. That event was, well, I go to conferences, and quite frankly, I don't hang in the venue a lot of the time. I go in, I see the speakers, there's people I want to meet, there's people I want to see. It's all kind of hit and miss anyway, because it's this gigantic cluster of people. And so I tend to not be a heavy socializer at events like this for obvious reasons, which we can talk about because you had your own experiences with that as well. Right. There's a lot of targeting, a lot of psychotronics going on, a lot of mind games, and a lot of people in the background that are kind of gaming everything. So, even in the best conferences, that's going to happen. But energetically, I think there's an opportune moment for all of us to connect with each other as part of this, what I will call the authentic community that's emerging out of the flames of alternative media, because alternative media is a mess right now. And despite the fact that some people are prospering, what's really happening is a lot of people are now being outed. A lot of people are being discovered for who they are. And that's good, because that gives us space in the room to begin to talk to each other, which is the important conversation. Right. Tell us a little bit, Seth, about who you are, your background, what Black Earth Productions is, and your own journey into the work that you're doing now, which is clearly in the realm of shamanic and shamanic healing.
Well, it's as I've said here for a little while on my channel with the videos I've been putting out, that right now in 2017, we've reached the end of the great year. And when I speak of the great year, I'm speaking of the Atlantean cycle that mankind has been dealing with, I'll say, for the last 26,000 years. The way things began for me goes all the way back to the beginning because of what's been revealed to me via my soul code genetics and getting into the blue flame healing arts and occult science, and actually what we're doing now with Black Earth Productions is getting people in the position to be able to access themselves. And I don't know what people think out there about past life, incarnation, getting into ancestors, getting into blood codes, getting into the melanin, getting into the true knowledge that's been made occult within us. That is what we're in the position now to be able to initiate people into, if that's what they're seeking, because it's one thing to know about what's going on around us. And there's so many people out there, especially in this network and in this community worldwide, that know about what's going on, right? The number one thing that Lucifer, I will say, its objective, that consciousness, the dark Luciferian current, is to keep us from remembering who we are. So the way I'll say I got into this in this incarnation started back probably in my late teens, going into my early 20s. I've spoke about the experience I had in the year 2000 when I had direct interface with the Fallen Anu, all of these factions that I mentioned at Free Your Mind 5 when I spoke the first night. I only had about 5 or 10 minutes to speak. But
in fact, you did definitely throw it down, brother. You definitely laid it. You laid it down that night.
Yes. And if people want a true sense of disclosure about what the fuck is going on with all this alien shit, go watch the video on my channel. Because I lay out all these factions, right? And there's this idea that these beings that are off planet are here as our saviors. Okay, and that could be nothing further than the actual truth. Everything I'll say in the last 15, 16 years has been a setup for the true, real New World Order that they're lining up, because there's transfers of power going on right now in 2017, because they know that in truth no longer have cosmic jurisdiction because of the way the cycles work, because of the way natural law and a whole bunch of other things that's really a lot to get into. They do not have jurisdiction. But because of the embedment, because of the brainwash, because of the mind control, all of the ignorance and karma, I'll say, is still passing off on humanity, because we are still allowing the ultimate evil to run amok.
Yep.
And it's not enough to know about anything. What are we actually doing? What are the actions that we are taking? And as far as what other people have been doing, I 100% support anybody out there that's informing others. Whether we have all the pieces of the puzzle or not really doesn't make a difference. It's just the fact that we are working towards something that honestly in this reality field is never going to reach an arrival point. Because you can keep going and going and going and going and going about all the fucking problems that are going on. But why do they keep happening? Why do they keep occurring? It's
the
because
root cause of all of this. It's like we never get to that. We just spin around on the details on the surface.
Right. Well, getting into the higher occult sciences, okay, the first cosmic law is that it's all a state of mind. That's why they do mind control, man. And if we are not the master of our own thought and emotion, something else is. And depending on what people are drawn to, highly determines what's going on within their genetic makeup, what grid works they've been niched out in, and getting into the 7 chakra system, okay? Because that's really where they're doing mind control from. The mind itself, thought and emotion, is directly keyed into the chakra system.
Yep.
And depending on which chakras are running your system will determine the consciousness. So with the 7 chakra system, that is completely astral infused, root to crown. So the first experience, say someone starts awakening, right? Like when people start waking up back in like 2008, 2009, all this stuff started coming out. One example is, all this sacred geometry.
Right.
Okay, what is that? Well, what's going on with that? That's dealing with a specific grid work that in truth, the dark ones, that's their system of black magic. But they had to market it. They had to put it out there so that they could get people leashed out into this consciousness, leashed out into this grid work. And that gets into the crystalline Syrian B agenda that I'm talking about. And all the grid works, within the astral that are going on, it's a literal labyrinth.
Would you agree with me? I've said before that they lay down the programming, the mind control programming in the chakras. That's how they do it. They lay down the mind control programming in the chakras using sacred geometry grids. That's how they do it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the fractal virus.
Yes.
Okay, because you got the golden ratio, the Fibonacci
right
spiral, but that number is a number that devours itself.
Yes.
It gives birth to itself and it devours itself, just like the Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. They're basically the Ouroboros.
Right. So that's one of the mathematical equations for what we're actually dealing with. And again, all is within us, right? Everything in the universe is a mental projection. Everything, literally everything.
Yeah.
Everything out in the heavens, the stars, the galaxies, that is all happening within us. The planets, even the Earth itself that we are walking upon.
Yeah.
Is a reflection of what's within, from the macro to the micro, and then of course what's beyond. Because the way creation works, the as above so below, as within as without principle has been completely hijacked by the dark ones.
Yeah.
And so getting into the tree of life real quick, like I talked about it for your mind, that tree is distorted and is actually the clip off inverted tree of death. I have a friend of mine that's completely decoded this, completely basically confirmed what I've been talking about for the last 5 or 6 years now. And I've gotten a lot of heat from people, man. But this man that I'm speaking with, he's literally mathematically proven everything that I'm talking about, and we're working together now. We're gonna do some things in the future, but. Anyhow,
is this the guy who wrote the article recently called "The Flower of Life," aka "The Daisy of Death"?
No.
Okay, because this article was talking about a lot of what you're talking about right here. It was a very interesting article. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, but getting back to the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, that spiral is only one of three. You got linear time, and then you got the sine and cosine wave. The sine wave is a spiral, but there's two more that have been hidden from us, and a lot of people don't even know about the first spiral. And you want to talk about the golden ratio. That ratio is the lead of consciousness that we have been coding. It's fucking lead. Okay, they take these higher concepts, and then then what the sorcerers did eons ago was incorporate some of the true teaching, which they themselves don't understand because they never finished their initiations, into what they have done with the distortion. This all goes back to the destruction of Tiamat Maldek, and that's literally the fragments of consciousness that are embedded within the mental plane of the chakra system that's held within the core. All right, and then you have the perimeter of the chakras, which is the lower astral, and that's all of this, insectoid, draconian, zeta, regalian, all the stuff that I talked about. You know what I'm saying? But the very first layer, the very, very first layer that people are going to come up against if they actually come into the real process is that layer of black magic, straight up. And if people don't know the game that's going on, you're not going to get burning in, past all of these layers, let alone are going to start to become the master of your own thought emotion, getting into the upper astral, which again is the mental plane. These are all the fragments that we're dealing with. This person over here is talking about this. This person's talking about this. This person's having this experience in awakening, and boom, boom, boom. It's all this subjective experience, which is completely fine. But what I find is that a lot of people, they hit a ceiling, and then they get thrown back. They fall back into old patterns, old ways of thinking, old ways of being. And another reason why is because of the level of warfare that actually takes place. Because you got the etheric war, but then you got this shit going on with people, in network. And like Randy was talking about just now, the wheat and the chaff are essentially, being separated now because they grow up. You hear the parable; they grow up together, and they look the same. Wheat and chaff looks the same until it's time. And right now in 2017, it is time going into 2018, into 2025, and then 2065. So the way I got into all this, you guys, was I could write volumes. I mean, I could write a novel about my experiences. I think, though, what matters most out of all of that, the initial experience was when I made connection with what I term creator source. And after this happened, I realized that everything that I knew since I was a kid was going to start to be revealed. And it did slowly, because you can only take so much. And when I talk about creator source, there's this idea out there, especially, with the New Age teaching. Everybody talks about this bliss, right? This bliss energy, the bliss of, the ascended masters or the guides or whatever, right? And that energy is literally there as an anesthetic to give people the illusion that they're having a quote-unquote godly experience when they're being leashed out into these grid works by these fallen.
Yeah, it's an anesthetic for leash harvesting, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And then they trade off their energy for this energy, and then that's how they slowly get siphoned. Their consciousness gets altered. Then they become a pawn for these agendas that are going on. Now, when it comes to the energy of creator source, that energy and consciousness is unbelievably pure, raw, infallible. And once you actually experience it and tap it, it will purge you the fuck out, man. It will, if there's any toxic layers going on, you are in the Athanor. And that's why I call my channel Black Earth Productions, because that's the first stage of alchemy, is the blackening, where you go into the Athanor, where you go into that experience of calcination, where all of the layers that we are not, that the false ego via the shadow has attached itself to, that all starts to get burned up. And unfortunately is where a lot of people turn back. The idea of who they thought they were is no longer present. And that's a real scary fucking thing. It's like, who am I? And that's the ultimate question. Who are you? Who are we really? What's really going on? And getting into shamanism and what true shamanism is, they wiped out the shamans, man. Why did they wipe us out? Why did they wipe out my ancestors? Because we held the keys, the secrets to be able to travel the worlds at will. We're here in the third dimension. We're on lockdown. And this eventually, on the highest level, we're going to take our physicality with us. But we haven't reached that point. And that's why, again, like I'm saying, there's no arrival point, because people still haven't got their minds right. They're still not the master of their thought and emotion. And then they want to go study the occult. It's overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people. And then the fear programming kicks out. And then, of course, depending on what or where people have been, all of this stuff is going to start getting kicked out. And there's a lot of what I see, going on, especially when clients, hit me up for session, students, all the things that they're going through. They're going through this initiation process of learning to remember who they really are. That's really the core essence of Blue Flame Healing Arts, and then of course getting into the higher occult sciences. And once you know how your thought and emotion work, what do you do with it? Because we have these gifts and talents, but is it being directed by all this programming, or is our thought and emotion and our beingness being directed by our true core essence? And getting in there and being able to discern what's going on. And so there's a lot of things that have led up to these present moments.
I want to go back for a minute to your encounter with Source Creator. I had what you would call the Dark Night of the Soul experience back in 2009. And it was at a time when I was doing Christian radio. You and I have talked about this. And this was literally the threshing floor, which was oddly enough the name of the radio program that I was doing. It was also the purging fire. It was not pretty. It was not comfortable, but it was not a psychotic break. And I can say that with some authority because I've gone through that. But what I remember about it most was the sense of being reflected back to me, a pure image that I had of myself, while at the same time watching all of this stuff being taken off of me. It was literally a purging fire. Was your sense of this as well, that while it was uncomfortable, it was extremely disturbing? In the midst of it, it was like when you get to the center of the flame and you have the blue flame, you know, the yellow, the red flames, but you get to the center of that blue flame and there's a presence there that actually is the still small voice. Can you speak to that a little bit about your experience? Because I've never really had a chance to talk to anybody about this before.
Right. And the unfortunate thing with religion, especially the religion of Christianity, which Mark Passio is about to, give a very intense dissertation on, with his fake-ass Christians coming up. The unfortunate thing with religion is that, well, especially with Christianity, like I'm getting at, they stole everything. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the true power of the energy force, I'll say itself, let alone where its origin hails from, the way we access it is by going into the core of who we are. That's why you hear the whole axiom, know thyself and you shall know the universe. And people want to attribute this to, Crowley or whoever, when in truth, this is far, 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 far more ancient than even the timelines that they're putting it on. Okay. And no man or woman can claim truth as their own. It's like with the New Age, with the whole postmodern ideology. Well, this is my truth, and that's your truth. You can have your truth, and this is my truth. But they completely contradict one another. How is that truth? Truth is what reconciles everything and confirms itself again and again and again. It always has, in my experience. Now, whether reconciliation happened with me is when I went through this experience of having to burn through the bloodline genetics that I incarnated into via my father's bloodline and my mother's bloodline, which, by the way, both fucking sides are very, very highly satanic. Getting into masonry, getting into, the Order of the Mystic Shrine, Scottish Rites, police force, military.
Yep.
Okay.
All of that stuff. I got that too. Yeah.
And so having to go into that, and when it happened to me, it happened all on its own. It was self-actualized within me on a much deeper level than my own conscious thought and emotion could understand at the time. And it literally threw me into hell. It threw me into into all of that. And that's what I had to face, and that's what I had to burn through. And looking at it now, you guys, I've realized that is a part of what I, agreed to. Because you come and you want to incarnate, and you're, say, essence and consciousness that's from beyond the barrier. Someone that holds the original template, like my kind do. All right, you're going to come up against all this kind of stuff. And other people out there have experienced too. But when I made that connection, after I made it through all of that experience, when I made that connection, I knew that I was connecting to the real. It was undeniable. It is still undeniable, even right this moment. Now, do I experience what I did in that moment all the time? No, because I've gone through this initiation process again and again and again, the alchemical process again and again and again, depending on what's going on. Because a lot of people, man, they want that one weekend retreat, or they want that seminar, and then they're good for like a week, and then it's on to the next one, and then that becomes an addiction.
Yeah.
Where is the true teaching, out there that is really giving people the experience of this power? And it all comes back to that, making that connection. And when you connect to it, when I say creator source, you are connecting to the true core essence of who you are as well. Because we are here as expression. And going back to the whole idea of know thyself, we are here so that creator source can know itself as well. See how that works? Know thyself and you will know the universe, right? It's getting back to that. Now in 2017, the ancient blood code genetics of the Atlantean wisdom councils, also the dark priesthoods, are being activated. I think that's why a lot more people are coming out and they're getting into these sorts of things, and you can see people's process. And then so you have the shamans, right? You have the people that came into those bloodlines and incarnated into those bloodlines, and ironically, a lot of the same experiences that we have had is what's going on with the secret space program shit, or the super soldiers, or the targeted individuals, or all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because when you get into soul regression, I've heard reports about a shaman that was doing soul regression with a young girl, and she like went into this vision with her or something. I'm trying to remember the story, how it goes. But what ended up happening, she opened this door, and then she saw a Zeta gray on the other side of the door, and and immediately they saw her, and they were like, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." So shaman, the magus, the magician was able to travel the worlds, right? He started out as a fool, but then he became an initiate. He became a magician, getting into the archetypes of the tarot. It's the Fool card, which is the soul card, and then what's the first card is the magician.
Yep.
That's when you become the initiate, and then learning about the elements, the laws of nature, the laws of the universe. Where is that being taught? Where is that being offered? Well, there are schools out there, and I'm in network with a few colleges. You know what I'm saying? But none of this is a joke, man. Because once the process takes you, it takes you. But it's all for the purpose of getting you back into the true core essence of who you are. Creator source wants us to reach our highest potential. It doesn't want us to be slaves. It doesn't want us to be burdened down. It doesn't want us to be, in pain and suffering, in fear of, this or that, or, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay the bills? All the stuff that the mundane world and all the distractions out there are literally set up to suck the life force out of us, right? And it happens today. That's what it's all designed to. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, just as long as we don't remember who we are. That is the dark Luciferian agenda at its core, so that we don't take this reality field back. But it's, and people want to stop this, or they want to, go march on Washington, or they want to, whatever. But when really the way we win is by detaching from it, letting it fucking rot, discovering who the fuck we are anymore, and then coming together with that potential.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's just gonna go on and on and on. People have their process. You know what I'm saying? But this is what's happening now in 2017, as far as what has been revealed to me and my inner circle, and what we're focused on, and what we're working to promote. And people can take it or leave it. This isn't like some evangelism thing. Because again, this process has to come from a place of being self-actualized within the individual. But if any of this does resonate with people out there, what we're doing and other people in our circle, and this is a worldwide network now. You know what I'm saying? World fucking wide. Now I'm talking to you guys. Okay, what's going to happen from this? Is it gonna go into the drama? Is it gonna go into the fucking bullshit like it has been? No, I don't think so.
Everything you've said so far really does kind of gel with the direction that we've been going for, a long time. In terms of the shamanic, you're probably more versed in the arts of this than myself in terms of esoteric knowledge and things like that. I've kind of been the inner voyager in terms of my own experiences and my own sense of where this leads without without a whole lot of, I would say, formal lore and formal ritual or teaching. You know, there have been those intervals in my life when I've encountered beings who passed on certain key aspects. A lot of my life has just been healing from the early part of my life, which was, you know, it was enough. It was enough to deal with. But it also is because gateways were opened up in me as well. And I think that's true. Emily would agree with that. And I think a lot of the people in our particular sphere would say the same thing, that, you know, we basically we're all coming at this from different tangents, but at the same time, I think we're heading in a similar direction. So I'll redirect back to you in terms of what do we need to know in terms of the lore, the shamanic practices, rituals, initiations, because again, we're dealing with the language which has been appropriated by the dark side. The idea of an initiation is considered to be occultic, dark occultic. It's associated with secret societies, Illuminati intergroups, generally practicing dark arts, sacrifice, sex magic, and things like that. Whereas I suspect that what you're talking about is a pure form that doesn't have all of that carnal baggage on it.
Exactly. And the goal is to take it back to the original intention of the wisdom councils that I get into in my video, The Jedi, the Codes of the Narmongo. And this is going back 550 million years, man.
Now, how do we know that? I mean, how do we?
Based upon my research,
okay,
and the things that I've looked into, in reference to Keylontic science and a lot of other occult references, man, it's, you know, I don't expect anyone just to take my word for it. And really, it really doesn't matter, because what we do now is what truly we need to be focused on. Because people can argue the past. You know, but again, going back to what I was talking about, we're working with fragments here. Okay, what was the original?
Right. I agree with you on that. Now, I was not challenging you on that. I just.
Oh yeah, no, that's cool, man. I'm just saying what it needs to come back to is the original true essence of what all of this really means. And the dark ones, the dark factions, they stole everything, man. They didn't even finish their initiations and ended up wiping out the councils of Mu, the councils of war. Okay, great wars happened, and this has been going on for eons. And, you know, take it back to the story, you know, of the Gospels. What is that actually talking about? The war between the Magi shaman and the sorcerers. On the timeline that they put that shit on, it's not the actual timeline, right? But it's playing upon. But this religion is playing upon those codes, which perpetuates this cult of Dagon to keep on doing what they're doing. Okay, on the highest level with the Vatican. Then you got all the other factions. You got the, you know, Talmudic, you know, Zionists. I mean, there's just so many that want to be in control of the planet, right? And then humanity's caught in the middle. But really what's going on, it's the war between the magicians and the sorcerers. But even the sorcerers are at war with themselves. And there's not enough people that are tapping into the real true essence of what we are to even get to the level of being able to, you know, battle, you know, on an astral battle level. Okay, we can't even deal with what's going on in 3D. How are we going to be able to deal with this? Because physical reality holds precedence over all the realms. You can know about what's going on, but unless we become the master of our thought and emotion, and the very first place I put people into, you know, practice with drawing the circle of the magician, okay, is learning how to master their thought and emotion. I can't even get into all the other stuff until they've reached a certain level with this. Because when that power is coming, and you're in the fulcrum, man, and you're in the circle, and the power of creator source is coming down, burning up all this stuff, that's where you learn to master it. And you spend time with it alone, away from all this stuff that's going on. So it does come back to a personal gnosis. It does come back to a very subjective personal practice that the individual undertakes themselves. It's not like a hierarchy, like with the dark ones and their initiates, and then they dangle some knowledge in front of them, and then they got to take some fucking blood oath, to go to the next level, and then they're evoking and invoking these Klopothian hierarchies, man. Just take your pick with it, but it's all the same in the end, because they themselves don't understand the secret of what they stole. They only pretend to, because if they were actually to obtain the true secrets of what they claim to know, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
At all.
It's almost like Aladdin's lamp as kind of a fable analogy there, where somebody walks away with something they don't understand and they unleash powers that they can't control.
It's like Pandora's box, man.
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
No. For my own personal experience, which again, like Randy said, is very different than yours. My background doesn't involve a lot of religion or lore or anything like that, but I've been going through my own version of those kinds of processes, and the only, to me, any kind of inner gnosis only comes from a deep personal self-examination, inner dialogue, and going there and sort of being there with yourself and having to look at all aspects of yourself and try and sort of connect back to that original thing that we were before all of this overlaid crap got put onto us, before our genetics were degraded, before we had all of this debris in our field that makes things very unclear. And that can be going to that place and working on yourself. There can be a difficult process, and it's not one that is met with any kind of approval or seal of achievement or anything from anyone outside of yourself. And people, for some reason, feel that they need to be told you've done it right, or that's good, or whatever. And this process that's not how this goes. This is something that you do inside yourself, with yourself. And, it has to be an inner knowing. It can't be something that is, approved from the outside.
Right. At the same time, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. At the same time, though, truth is always going to confirm itself. Sure. Even right now in this conversation, truth is confirming everything that we're saying, Yeah, right now, people need to decide, because I talked about this last year. I said, within the next 2 years, going into 2025, everything's going to be unveiled, and it's going to happen. It's pretty redundant now, I think, as far as everything that's going on, especially on a geopolitical level. Like, how the fucking hell do people not see this yet? Okay, and I don't know if it's the generation before mine. You know what I'm saying? But it's like our generation. I'm in my late 30s, man, and the transfers of power that are going on with the dark ones, the same thing's happening now, because there's been those at the forefront for quite a while now, but it's like all meant to it's like leading up to this point. Okay, now what are we gonna regurgitate what we spoke about back 5 years ago? Are we still having the same issue? Okay, well, if that's the case, then let's go back and re-examine that. Things need to be gone over again and again as much as they need to, so that people can advance. But oftentimes I find that people are pulled into these feedback loops when they want to advance, when they actually want to get beyond everything, but they don't know where to go. It's like, okay, I've looked into this, I've looked into that, and just after a while it becomes redundant. Okay, what next?
There's been no hard commitment, individually or societally, for the advancement of the soul. Our culture was woven around a three-dimensional myth. The answer to what happened to the baby boomer generation is it was a generation of promise that squandered their promises very quickly in the 1960s.
Right.
They basically were co-opted. They ran intelligence operations against the Aquarian cusp of the spear that was coming in. Everything was co-opted. It took something that at one point was quite beautiful and turned it into something quite horrible in a decade. And that generation squandered what little they got from it, because they were no better. In fact, they were worse than their parents, because their parents didn't come into the spiritual essence that came with the emanations of that ray at that time. Our parents, my parents, the people who grew up through the Depression, the Second World War, the Korean War, were hardwired to a certain mode of life, which was materialism. Our generation was basically inclined to reject that. And yet, in the end, our generation embraced materialism at a level that our parents never dreamed of. We literally spent 2 generations worth of wealth in 1 generation.
Yeah.
And when I say wealth, I'm not talking about the money here or the material aspect. I'm talking about the spiritual wealth that was stored up, that was supposed to have been unleashed. For me, having grown up at the tail end of that period, it was shocking, disorienting, and left me with, that's actually been where I've been for most of my life, is trying to make sense out of what happened historically in that period.
Right. I have a friend of mine whose father is Doug Engel. Doug Engel is the lead singer of Iron Butterfly.
I know who that is. I have all their records.
I know Doug Engel's son.
Okay.
He was a close friend of mine back when I lived in Washington. And he gave me the lowdown of what actually happened. Now, there's a book I recommend people reading in context. It's called The War on Rock. And this is when the intelligence agencies and all the stuff that they came in and they raked out all these fucking bands, for this experiment.
Yeah.
And it worked. Doug Engel said, fuck that shit. And at the time, they were bigger than Zeppelin. Okay, Zeppelin was opening for...
They were the forerunners of Led Zeppelin. They
Yes.
were the first band that you could truly call, even by virtue of their name, heavy metal. Iron Butterfly.
Exactly. And so what happened, though, with what's been revealed to me, it was a giant energy harvest. All that free love, all that
Yep.
LSD. And what happens when you do hallucinogens? If people want to quick start their evolution, just do some hallucinogens. It's going to shoot you straight into the astral. You want an astral experience? Take some goddamn LSD or some ayahuasca or whatever. But I need to tell you that what you're going to experience is the lower astral. You're not tapping into anything that's beyond the lockdown. A true shaman doesn't need that. You can travel the fucking worlds, and I can. And I've been given access. I've seen these gatekeepers. I've had interface and confrontations, man. I mean, shit it gets crazy. But again, it all comes back to a completely subjective experience. Are other people experiencing this? I have no idea.
Well, this kind of goes into something that we've talked about for a while between ourselves and on the show, is that the drug scene itself, while there is, and I would agree, there's some value in that. I like mushrooms occasionally, but Emily and I have been discussing for quite a while that a lot of the drugs, especially the chemical drugs, are programmed. Right. Which is no different. When you say program, you're talking spells here. People need to understand that intelligence agencies are basically secret society.
You got black magicians in the lab making.
Yeah.
It's programmable matter. They're charging their own ideas and intentions into it. So it's gotten to the point where it used to be that they would use LSD as part of the experiments with MK Ultra, they are now putting the mind control into the drugs, essentially.
And in fact, I think they even were back then. Yeah. I mean, just if you just look at the evolution of the whole scene and who was behind it and what happened as a result of it, it's very clear to me that they understood right from the beginning, from the time that LSD came out of Sandoz Laboratories and with Albert Hoffman, that they had a vessel for something that could be used for a cultural revolution. And it wasn't the revolution that was organically supposed to happen. It was the revolution that they programmed into the drugs and into the culture and into the music itself, which is, I think, what you were talking about, Seth, in terms of Doug Engel and Iron Butterfly. Because the early Iron Butterfly, we're talking about a band that they kind of tapped into something that was an interesting energy. The trouble is you can't sustain that in a commercial atmosphere. And where it was co-opted, that period, 1968, 1969, that was the tipping point of rock culture. You know, we're 50 years out now from when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's, almost within weeks, which, in my opinion, was the tipping point of the culture. That's when they said, we're going to push this thing right to the edge. They were handing out LSD like it was candy. You went from Woodstock to Altamont in an 18-month period, and the darkness descended.
Right.
Now, all of those are cultural landmarks to something that was going on astrally and probably even deeper in terms of the culture itself, into darkness.
Right. One thing about the dark shamans, okay, is that they condone these practices, okay? A lot of the shamanism out there is literally designed to get people keyed into these lower astral, upper astral grid works. True shamanism, the shamanism that we practice, is learning not only how to navigate through these grid works by healing out all of the hooks, all of the holographic inserts, all the implants, all of the programming within the chakra system. You have all this etheric AI technology, and it's real. Okay, people need to understand the fact that this is real. It's not some spook thing or some fantasy. Okay, it's happening. Why did people die? Why do we suffer disease and sickness and all of that? Where in the beginning, humans didn't physically die. What happened? It does all go all the way back to the cataclysms. But again, Lucifer's main objective is to keep us from remembering who we are.
Yeah.
So with this whole experiment, what were people getting leashed out into? They were getting leashed out into the astral grid works, getting their genetics harvested, getting their life force sucked out of them, and then they were left to be fucking husks, right? And what do they have left? They had the material world, and then they became the worker drones, you know, that had perpetuated this slave shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's not to say everyone in that generation was a part of that. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, the evidence is quite clear.
Yeah.
And so now, you know, my generation, it's like, you know, I came in with this inner knowing ever since I was a child. You know what I'm saying? Because it's held within the soul codes. It's held within the genetics, right? At a deep core level. And a child, you know, that's why they try to get the children at a very early age through indoctrination, is so that they don't have a chance to explore these things.
Yeah.
And now it's like we're having to play catch up, not just for the last few generations, but even our generation itself. And the level of warfare that I personally faced and other people have faced has been immense because of all the buildup, because of all the things that are passed on in bloodlines. You know what I'm saying? And so, but that's if people want true freedom, if they want true healing, if they want, you know, the true organic biospiritual regenesis, then they're going to have to get past all of this shit. And then you got people out there like Terrence McKenna. He's like a modern day Timothy Leary. They're like, oh, he's so wonderful. Are you kidding? And the motherfucker is CIA. You know, it's interfaces, and they're even putting it out there now, out of the horse's mouth, because they know that this is so far gone that people are just, you know, all the level of willful ignorance and apathy that's going on. They could see, I could even give people the answer to the universe and they would piss on it.
Yeah.
Like this is a sacred science. This is a sacred art. And the path is you. It's about you remembering who you are, why you incarnated, the true history of what's really going on, the hour we are in right now, and then what's potentially meant to unfold. Because you had 4 main timelines running on these spirals that I'm talking about. This spiral energy, because you have the one that's expanding and life giving, but then you have the
closed system. There's
right.
one is expansive and an open system and life giving, and one is closed and bumps you up against death constantly.
Yeah. And so there's been 4 main timelines that have been running for quite a while now. We're down to 2, and the two main timelines are the one you just talked, or the 2 that you just mentioned.
Yeah,
those are the 2 main timelines that are running now. And within the next 8 years, people are going to be given the opportunity to get back on, but they got to get it now, because going into 2018, going into 2022 and 2025, that's when they're going to start, pumping out all of this, biotech, AI, transhuman shit. Maybe
they already are.
Right, and they already are.
I actually think you're an optimist. I actually think you're an optimist, because I think it's much faster than that. I'm seeing it.
Sure,
it's such an accelerated rate.
I'm already seeing like surrogate robots and like these. Yeah, man, it's fucked up, man. The virtual reality. Did you ever see Lawnmower Man?
Yep.
Back in the day. Okay, they got that now. Okay, I remember looking at books in elementary school, and what we're doing right now, being able to talk like this, like on a screen, fascinated me. The first time I saw it was in a book, though, and now it's reality. Just imagine with all the stuff they're putting out in Hollywood, especially what's coming. Because that's all predictive programming.
Or it's all stuff that's already been here, but they're just now willing to let us know about it.
Yeah, this is all cast off technology.
Yeah, they got it stockpiled. I know they got it stockpiled somewhere, just waiting to be rolled out, because that's how marketers work. They have their products, and then they put them out systematically at pace.
Or they use them covertly. They use them covertly until it can no longer be denied that something is going on, and then they release it as something that, like under the guise something that is helpful, so that people will accept it and be excited about it, when really it's been weaponized decades before and been being used on them without their knowledge. To that point, it's like Tesla's technology. It can be used for the benefit or for the destruction of mankind, because really all magic, all science, all of these higher occult sciences, I'll say, are a neutral thing with the energy force. Nikola Tesla was a master of the energy force.
Yes.
He knew how it worked. He knew what the 396 was. That's what they hijacked, though, man. And they hijacked the energy force of mankind. That's why the solar plexus chakra is their main inroad. Because why is the solar plexus chakra the main inroad? Because that's our will. That is our will. That is the energy of our action. And if the energy of our action is on the inverse with the lower 3 chakras, all astral infused, then guess where the consciousness is going to be? And that's where they want to keep people. You know what I'm saying? So getting into the higher occult arts and sciences will show the individual how to be able to do this and be able to access the soul code genetics and understand what's going on with the true history and the grid works and everything. I'm getting ready to unpack in Labyrinth and the 9 Veils. It's so much, though. It's so much, you guys, to unpack. And I don't know if people are ready. It doesn't matter, because truth is the one that is the higher force, I'll say, instigating all of this, but. And it's there for whom it's meant. At the same time, if people don't catch it now, they're going to be leashed out into all this transhuman shit that's coming.
Well, we've said for a while that we think that we see what is effectively a split in the world system, which will eventually result in the drifting apart in terms of a consciousness. Even in terms of dimensional realms, they're going to split off. The timelines that resolve, obviously one spinning down, it's going to resolve to a null point. The other one is going to expand up. So what is effectively happening is all forces have to at some point reach zero state, entropy. So we're kind of, where's the entropic point in all of these cycles, and who arrives at them has to do with where they are within the cycle they're engaged with, which is, you could look at it as the splitting of worlds, the end of one world, the beginning of another, ends of ages. The metaphors are there to show us something about cycles that we are engaged in now. And I'm just kind of freely riffing off of what you're laying out here, but feel free to jump in where you have something that maybe updates what I'm saying.
Our kind, I'll say, are here to prevent another cataclysm. There's those in my inner circle that say we're living in the past. Okay. And some of the things that I've experienced, it's pretty trippy.
Yes, I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
But this is, according to what they're saying, we are in the past on this particular linear timeline that we are on, here to prevent what already happened. And that's getting into like, crazy sci-fi, but really it's science fact. Once you understand what's going on, because past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously. The thing though with these spirals is they're getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yes.
And everything that is not true is not going to pass through that gate.
Yeah.
If you hold on to that and you identify with that and you're not willing to let go and let it burn, then you're good. Then you're going with it.
That's right through the 0 point.
And you're not going to make it through the period of time that we have right now. Me and Max Spears talked about it. He was taken out. Okay, this war is real. Okay, and other people I know have been taken out too. I've been brought to the brink, and it really surprises me that I'm still around. At the same time, though, with what I practice, these motherfuckers have to respect me, and we have to make them respect us, because once you know the game and what's really going on, that's when you can level up, make the playing field even, and then they go, oh, here's a worthy player. We can't just do whatever we want. We can't just come into his field and fuck with them, because if we do, we're going to get our asses kicked. And that's the attitude we have to have too. Not like, oh God, they're all powerful and
they're not. Yeah, no.
And, you want to know what's even more intense, more scary, more powerful is what I'm talking about. But the world hasn't seen our kind for eons. But those are the codes that are awakening. Those are the codes that are awakening within me. And lately, I have just been boiling. Looking, it's just the same humdrum bullshit day after day, week after week, year after year. And you want to talk about cycles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the cycle of the seasons, that is an unnatural thing. Where things give birth, they grow, and then they die, and then the cycle happens again. It's reflected in nature what mankind has been caught in. Whereas in the beginning,
Absolutely.
the poles of the earth itself were parallel, and there was no ice caps. And so people talk about, hollow earth. I know that's real.
Yeah.
Because it's a reflection of what's within. And you look at the heart center, the way a torus field works, the way the energy of a torus works, it's the same as the electromagnetic of the planet.
That's exactly what we've been saying all along, Seth, with all this bullshit about flat earth and all the rancor that's going on with that. Yeah,
I've seen the curvature of the earth myself. Everybody out there, all you flat earthers, I've seen it. Case closed. I've seen it in a plane. That is a psyop, and that my friends is playing on the old codes that are going out. And so this shit's so embedded within the unconscious.
Well, let me just say this, because it also hides another aspect.
It's what's getting kicked out, and then they come out with the, capitalizing on that consciousness and then getting people leashed out into this consciousness when it's already been proven that is bullshit. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, the whole concept hides something else, which is the aspect of the torus fields, which is the construct that we're in is far less material than I think most people understand. Yet at the same time, it has a material aspect. It's a representational system. It's a projection of consciousness. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do, because everything in the universe is a mental projection.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the first cosmic law. What is your state of consciousness? Do you even know your own psychology? Do you know how your system mechanics work? Do you know how your body works and what it's actually capable of? Tapping into that, encouraging that, empowering that. And it doesn't matter physical age, okay? Because the true core essence of who we are, you get into age regression, man. People that, in Tibet that are, 350 years old that you don't even hear about. Well, how is that possible? Because they know how to work with the energy force, and they're not getting leashed out every day, being slaves, because that slave consciousness is so embedded, man. Even though people think they know what's going on, they're still perpetuating it, and I'm trying to break away from it with what I'm doing. I have to work in the morning and afternoon. I don't mind working, you know what I'm saying? But I'm my own boss. I'm not, I'm an independent contractor doing that. And so I'm not a slave to somebody else's agenda or time, or, it's like, it's all actually, self-actualized within me. And it took me a long time to manifest that. And now it's going to the blue flame healing arts and the cold science. You know what I'm saying? And I've already, I had a talk with James Bartley. It's going to be coming out, talking about the wisdom councils coming together again. And speaking with Mark Passio, he straight up told me, he's like, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, we are the elders. Because the generation before us didn't get it.
Yeah.
So that transfer of power that's happening with the dark ones, look at that generation and who perpetuated that agenda. That was who, that generation had to look up to. You know what I'm saying? And then, they had their kick out in the 60s, right? But it's like, what happened, man? They all ended up consenting because they got that true soul code essence ripped out of them.
Well, in all fairness, and I have to balance this because I think I was fairly critical. Not all of any generation are taken out. In fact, I would argue, to balance what Mark Passio said in that statement, and I would be more than happy to advance this to him, that in every generation there are the hidden.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of times where the hidden were, they were the most wounded. They were the people who were trod under, marginalized, and pushed into the sidelines. Therefore, they are hidden in plain view. The most terrifying thing to intelligence agencies right now is the emergence of their own little science projects that have fucking come out and said, you know what? I broke programming. I know who you are. And even worse, I know who I am.
Mm. Yep.
I've said for years, first off, it's a miracle any of us are alive. And I've been real close to death. And I've had demons taunt me and tell me I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, go ahead, kill me. Take me out. Make me a god. I'm coming back. I will be your worst fucking nightmare. So to balance the argument, in every generation, there are elders. There are those who are hidden and secreted away. And I want to balance that because while I understand the spirit in which that is spoken, there is an element to that which goes into ageism, which is just as wrong as sexism and racism.
Yeah.
I think we need to acknowledge each other in the progression of the generations and honor what came before us. That's actually law.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And that's what I mean about the wisdom councils coming
Yes.
together. Those that know that they are a part of this need to come out now and really be that.
People need to step up on all sides. I agree with you on that.
Right. I'm saying in context to what we're getting at.
Yeah.
That's what I've called for. That's what I've been told to say. Both you and I had experience in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've seen the seed of the dark Luciferians. And there's so many well-meaning people that get involved, man. But once I got into leadership and once I saw what was going on behind the scenes, oh man.
The church is the church is the synagogue of Satan.
Right.
You say that inside of a church, You can kiss your ass goodbye, because that's what
Right.
happened to me.
Right. And it was the same thing with me. I ended up going back though and confronting it, and actually, earned a level of respect, among the people there. But the things I was teaching was starting to get into, a lot of what I'm actually talking about, and how showing people how to make that connection. It's like, how do I make that? Well, it's unique to the individual. You know what I'm saying? Because the way our psyches work is individual, based upon the astropsychology. You know what I'm saying? My moon's in Scorpio, so my thought and emotion, the root of that astrological tree, is in Scorpio. You know what I'm saying? Somebody else's thought and emotion may be rooted in another type of energy of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? But these are the first steps, and then you got numerology. Then you have the archetypes of the tarot, and then you have the tree of life, the true universal tree of life, which I'm working to eventually be bringing forth, working with the other individual I was talking about. And you completely destroyed the false Kabbalah and tree of death shit.
Yeah.
Completely proves mathematically that it is a system that is designed to harvest genetics, to crucify.
It's a death cult. That's what I've called it for years.
Right.
Yep.
And all of that, and all of this, what I'm talking about, goes back to the Thothian sect and the Brotherhood of the Snake, who betrayed the wisdom councils, ripped open a wormhole in Sakura, Egypt, and let the fallen Anu in so that they could take over, which happened in context 26,000 years ago. And then came the pole shift. Then came the Great Flood that everybody talks about. And then came the splitting apart of Pangea, which at one time all the landmass was together. And people want to argue the the origins of civilization and everything. We're all from the Great North, because that's how we came in. We came in through the portals. We came in through the electromagnetic spectrum of how things operate. But when the pole shift happened, that's when they sealed off the stargates. And we've been caught and just recycled again and again and again and again and again. That's why you come in, you have certain memories of the past or past life recollection, or future premonitions, what's coming in the future. You know what I'm saying? In 2017 is when all of this is meant to really, and I mean really, start to change, because everything else up until this point, as far as what I can see, has just been a warm-up for what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's like we're just getting our legs warm the last 15, 16 years.
What was the first show that we did this year?
And that's been brutal enough, man. But it's anyone that's made it this far, we have to see it all the way through.
We've been tricked other times into we were on the right path, and we've been tricked into being distracted or being lured into doing the very thing that we were supposedly fighting against. And this time we have to not get distracted from our path and ride right up the proper timeline, the 0 point timeline that you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's the 0 and the 9.
Yep.
That is the hole of the vortex within the fulcrum, the circle of the magician. That is how our kind access it. The dark ones use the circle in a way that is completely inverted and perverse. All right, that's where they evoke and invoke these spirits, these demonic hierarchies and stuff like that. And there's left-wing brothers out there that are showing people how to do these rituals. I mean, it is all out in the open, and people think it's a joke, man. It's not. It's not. It's coming out to the forefront. As far as I'm concerned, the path that I've been on and my cosmic, heritage, because this does go back for me at least 300,000 years, 40,000 years with the Nordic tradition. And then you take it to the Druidic tradition. How far back does that go? And so all of these codes, all of these memories are there, and we are the accumulation of our ancestors. You are the accumulation of every single person that has been within the bloodline.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they got these DNA tests that people can go get.
Oh, God.
Why do you think they're doing that now? Because they're trying to track who's got these codes, because they don't know who's coming in. They've been able to scan certain people. I was scanned as an infant. I was targeted right away.
Yep, all three of us.
Yep, all three of us.
Because of what I came in with.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
I think.
And so, go ahead.
So what Randy and I talk about, and I think this is how it works for particular. I think that you're right. They're doing what they're doing with all those DNA tests to try and catch things that they may have missed. But I think for some of us, not only do they scan us when they're born, but they know we're coming. Because we carry with us a frequency that they have been tracking from the beginning of, when this system, when our system was sort of invaded and degraded. They've been tracking our frequency through incarnations. So they know we're coming in, and in some cases they actually genetically prepare a body for us to come into, almost as a soul magnet to suck us into that, so they know where we're going to be, and they can try and manipulate our skills, our talents, our memories, our genetics into playing along with their agenda. And so the challenge becomes for us to wake up to who we are before they're able to completely manipulate that into something where we can't even recognize ourselves anymore.
Absolutely. And that's the name of the game is genetics. It always has been. And I mean, there's an idea that, you can trade knowledge, you can trade, certain things, but when you're dealing with these new stellar races, okay, all of the shit that's coming in and out of like, say, what people are seeing in the sky, okay, that's all the fallen. All of it, every single bit of it. There are no benevolent races that are coming in to save us.
No. You were. This is like the biggest tripwire in the world, because we're grounders and we've been basically left to kind of twist in the wind on the Earth's surface. We're in awe of anything that's in the sky. I mean, most of the craft that I have seen, with a few exceptions, I can attribute to military. But even so, the extra-dimensional craft are legitimate. I've seen them since I was a kid. I know the difference between them. There's nothing good there. There never was. The fact that they abduct, the fact that they do the things that they do, the fact that they have basically kept us under their boot heels, even though we are their superiors. This is where we come back to know who you are. Why in the hell, if we're so screwed, have we not been conquered?
Yep. Yeah.
Shout it, brother.
Goddamn right.
I saw it. I saw it forming on your lips.
Yes.
Wish we had visuals now.
We have to take back cosmic jurisdiction.
Yeah.
There were tribes here in the beginning, during the first, second, and third seeding. Human consciousness hails from Lyra, our cosmic origin of consciousness. All right. Tiamat, Maldek was our home within this sector. Earth was a seed planet. It's always been a seed planet. Think about the billions of life forms that are here, that once were here, even more than there are now, because of extinction of different animals, and we can't imagine how it used to be. Well, we can try, we can tap into those memories. But when the wars happened, when Tiamat was destroyed, that offset the planetary sphere of consciousness that was the bridge, to be able to pass through the metaverse. I'll say through the when I say metaverse, I mean the universe on the multidimensional level. At the same time, there was a point where we could go anywhere we wanted physically, and we had all of our other bodies intact, and we were completely transfigured. You hear about the transfiguration. What's that all about? Take it back to the true ancient mysteries, which they kind of threw in there, with the Gospels, man. But it does not show people how to actually do this. It's just a story. And then here comes Saul of Tarsus with his murderous fucking doctrine and completely, hijacked through Judaism, through Talmudic Judaism, the ancient mystery of what is time immemorial, going back to the very beginning, which all of the tribes at the time still held intact within their cultures. But even before the cataclysms took place, that is where all of this is coming from, because it's all fragments, because we're all trying to, it's like the remnants of what once was still present, but it's all fragmented. All of it, paganism, all religion, the New Age, it's all fragmented. It's all bullshit. Yeah. All of it, every single bit of it.
What we're trying to do here is reassemble our bodies and reassemble the body. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I agree with you.
So the bridge points within the chakra system to gain access to the consciousness that I'm talking about, that's beyond the barrier, getting into healing the fragments and the layers, is the heart center. It's the heart center, the thalamus, and the throat chakra, because those three are fragmented off from the original template. The core of the original template is the throat, the thalamus, and the heart as one, all working as one, all bridged, all working synergistically, right? So and the thalamus is how we get access to what's beyond the astral. All right.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to cut us off from the heart, because you got to get to the heart first before you bridge to the thalamus. And then you got other people out there that are throat center chakra centered, and then they have to work from that point. You can even look at that whole paradox with the mind, throat chakra being logic, heart chakra being emotion, essentially. When it comes to the mind and the energy bands that come down there. But the bridge point between the two is the thalamus. Right? So you got the spindle of the energy force within you, but it's been fragmented with the 396, and then that's when they get all these people on these feedback loops within themselves. The mind is split, the energies are split, and it's just and you got multiple personalities too. I mean, that kind of stuff happens.
Explain a little bit about the 396. I think this is worth pursuing a little bit, Seth.
Well, in a nutshell, it's how they have been able to triangulate our reality field into the death cycles that we have been in, with this astral tech that literally is the astral barrier. You can throw the frequency fence in there too if you want. And these are just terms to explain what I'm talking about. So the way it works, though, is it's through the chakra system, like I'm talking about. And I do often say this as well, that all is within us, right? Everything in the universe is a mental projection, then it's all happening within us first. Yep. The as above, so below is the same as within, as without. Okay, so the 396 triangulation is happening at various sectors within the chakra system. You have the lower 3 chakras, which we call the heart quadrants. There's a triangulation happening there. There's a triangulation happening up in the centers that I was just sharing with you, with the hearts and the throat chakra, and then you got another triangulation going on with what we call the upper triangle. Okay, so it's these 3. But the way that it heals and all comes back into alignment, you got to work with the triangulation that's happening with the hearts and bridge that consciousness within you to be able to kind of break apart the polarization. It's the cause point for polarity, right? Because they manipulated the positive and negative charge of the energy force because they stole the secret of the arc, the secret of the energy. What was the Ark of the Covenant? It was a fucking weapon.
Yes,
it shot out electricity, right?
Yeah.
You got the Jedi, being able to shoot electricity out of their hands. All of this goes back to what I'm talking about with the energy force, right? And we can access this, right? But that's what I talk about, taking when you take back the 9 within yourself. That's when you take control of the spindle of this reality field. It's like because the way the energies are working, as above, so below, as within, as without. when you take back your own energy force, that's when you come into alignment within the vortex.
Yep.
And the zero and the 9 are in alignment, and then you're able to travel through all of this fucking shit without being leashed out. And that, and that's eventually what happens when someone reaches a certain point of healing. They're able to navigate these grid works without getting, sucked in or leashed out, especially looking into all the information about the dark occult. I mean, shit, man. It's like, I don't know if it was Nietzsche that said this, but if you stare too long into the abyss, it's going to suck you in. If you stare headlong into that void, and you allow it to overtake you, it's going to suck you in. So people got to pull back from literally everything, as far as I'm concerned, and really, recalibrate and go, okay, what are we going to do now? And getting into these arts and sciences, it gives people the opportunity to really discover who they are and what our true potential is, man. Because I'm telling you, man, every student that I've had so far, 100% success, 100%.
So I want to ask you something and see if we're talking about the same thing. So sure. I do a lot of my personal exploration and healing and growth in the visual space, and so what I get is sort of like a pole, like a tether, and then there's a spinning disc that sort of moves up and down it. I've described it as sort of being connected to my original self and the highest self that I'm trying to kind of get back to, but this time be one that is not going to be taken over and degraded like we were the first time. And then I have this spinning disc, the spindle you're talking about, and I'm able to sort of move it up and down. It's sort of like it's the 3 and the 6, and I'm using the 9, which is the spindle, right? The spinning wheel of life force energy.
Well, the three and the 6 are the positive and negative.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And then, right.
Energy force,
right. And then I have the spinning disc that I use, and it's sort of, I am able to navigate throughout whatever grid I'm looking at, because I get, hyperspace kinds of grids, but always, like, how I know that I'm connected to myself and not sort of lost is I can always find that tether and the spindle, and I use that to sort of weave my way in and out of these sort of spaces that I'm looking at. Is that what we're talking about, the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely talking about the same thing.
All right.
And these are the arts and sciences that are going to be at the forefront in the coming, weeks, days, months, years. And it all goes back to the original. It's all coming back to the original. And our ancestors even knew that the time that we are in right now would come, and they spoke of it. When the end of the death cycle came, when the end of the 5th cycle came, that is when the 6th root race would be seated. And we are right now in 2017 at the very, very beginning of that. Think about all the stuff we've been through. Why have we had to burn through all this stuff? What is it leading up to? And see, even what I'm talking about now isn't the arrival point. No. It's just a step along the process, okay? Because what's beyond this, it's never happened before. And I don't know how it all comes together. I've called for the wisdom councils to
they're coming together.
You know what I'm saying? But again, that's what all of this is. Because you get into soul groups, you get into soul cycles and stuff like that, and the way it trickles down. I mean, there are a lot of us out there that do hold the same core consciousness within us, and that's why you resonate with this, or you repel with that. But at the same time, all of the soul cycles are collapsing in on these spirals. Okay, and it's all trying to come back onto the original timeline that mankind is meant to be on. Right, but it's going to take completely detaching from everything and working to build something else. Going up and fighting them. They got nukes. You got all this shit going on with North Korea, and I predicted all this going on in North Korea with Russia and Iran and Syria and everything that's going on. I predicted everything that's going on back in 2010. There are videos on my channel that are not public, but a lot of people laughed at me back then. Now look at what's happening, because it's these same cycles, man. And you notice even in your life, certain cycles, certain thought patterns, certain emotions that come up. We're all in these cycles.
Yeah.
It's
interesting how certain particular thoughts and thought cycles and behavior patterns and whatever seem to cycle back at the same time, parallel to one another. And what is the connection between the two? And that's something I've really been looking at lately.
That's interesting, because it's obvious, if that's happening, that whatever's being healed out isn't all the way out yet.
Yeah.
You'll go through the same alchemical process of nigredo, albedo, and then the reddening. Some people throw the yellowing in there. Anyhow, you're going to go through the alchemical process, through whatever you need to heal through, as many fucking times as you need to, until you have mastered it, or until you've transcended it, or until you have integrated the shadow. And that's the thing about shadow work. I mean, you have the shadow is a part of who we are. And if people cannot see their own potential for the ultimate evil, they will never be free from it. Oh, I'm a good person, I would never do that. Wrong. People are doing it to themselves every day, unconsciously, and then we wonder why the world is the way that it is.
Check this out. This is what I put up on Facebook about 3 hours ago. And this
Did you throw something over to me, man, on the chat?
I sent something to both of you on the chat a little while back. I just want you to take a look at that later.
Yeah, we've got the link there, the Emerald Guardians. We'll put that up with the podcast so that the listeners can hear that. This is just, I've been doing Facebook blurbs just basically to try and trigger thought. And this was what hit me this afternoon. Polarization language is just masked victim status, which is really the way I see all of this going. We've got all this polarization right now, which is basically accusatory. It's designed to bifurcate. And yet, at the same time, the people that are pointing fingers are actually in a state of victimization where they are not empowered, where we're still fighting symptoms. We haven't even looked at the disease yet, which goes into the practicality of all of this. I'm looking at the time winding down. It always happens like this. The time compression kicks in, and that last segment that we do kind of gets intense. But people will hear this, and we've talked about a lot of concepts that I think are familiar to the listeners of this show. I also think we've hit on some things that we've maybe not explored before. But in terms of the practicality of this, for the person who resonates with what we're saying and is earnestly trying to advance in this, where do they go? I've made this statement before. I'm not interested in making this a better matrix. We've been in the goddamn matrix forever. I'm not interested in improving it. I can't give you a better monetary system. I can't give you a better government. I can't make your teeth whiter, your hair straighter, your car shinier, or your dick harder. I'm sorry. Because that's what people really want. You're just jealous
because my hair is straighter and my teeth are whiter than yours.
Your teeth are very white.
You got me with my dick can't be harder. So there you go.
We didn't incarnate to be slaves to this matrix.
No, exactly. I agree with that.
Master, what's going on. And okay, so the victimhood mentality, the fact is that humanity has been victimized. That trauma is there. At the same time, though, this is what people are going to have to go into and heal if they want to tap into that true empowerment, facing the pain of that. But it's like people can't even deal with that, and then they want to go heal the ancient trauma. You get ready, because that level of pain and experience, it's beyond insanity. I literally went mentally insane. I hope that people don't have to have that experience, but that victim mentality is there. And I was listening to Michael Tessarion, man. I have high regard for that man. He said that humanity has been victimized, but the reason why there's this angst is because justice needs to be served. At the same time, though, they've given us this slave clone drone, split within the mind with the 396, and we're polarized within ourselves, because to be empowered, like we're getting at, you have to be in control of your own energy force. It's the macro to the micro, energy force, creator source. Yeah, but that victim mentality, it's almost unbelievable how it's been projected on an unconscious level, especially among the networks. I mean, any little tiny thing will trigger somebody out, and then they're off to the fucking races, man. And it's like, whoa, hold on, you know. But that's what truth also at the same time is meant to do. It's meant to trigger out all this stuff. And so I see being cathartic, man. Being cathartic and like if you got to scream and break shit and fuck it. I was a death metal vocalist for 15 years. I wonder why. This is why. And it's like, that's how I got it out. That's how I got that pressure out, because it's all of this energetic pressure, like wanting to, you know, us to just cave in on ourselves and devour one another with this whole victimhood shit. And then we become the perpetrator because we're so self-murdered,
well,
you know?
And it's also, people are almost compete. Like I love, there's a guy that I listen to who calls it the oppression Olympics. People are almost competing to see who is the bigger victim.
Right.
Yeah.
And I talked about that last year after Max got taken out. And it was part of the spellcast that went out, part of the chaos magic.
Yes. Thank you for pointing. Yes.
To create more division.
Yep.
And everything I said in that video, I meant it. I still mean it.
That was actually the video where you and I first came to know each other.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, at that time, there was so much passion ignited around that whole sequence. I just had a conversation with Shane the Ruiner this afternoon about this exact same thing with the chaos magic that's been occurring. Right. Because that was a high energetic ritual cycle that was worked at a very key strategic point by very high wizards. It was a sacrifice, and it was also a means to introduce that chaotic energy, which has frankly never stopped pulsating inside of the networks themselves.
Right. And during that time, because me and Max were going to come back and do some more segments, you know what I'm saying? Getting into the dragon and the key. What's the dragon and the key?
Yep.
You know, getting into the hearts and you know, all the stuff I put in that particular video. But people don't understand how ancient this war is. There's those of us that have been on the front lines. I'm one of them. Max is one of them. You guys are obviously there too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're time lords, actually.
I'm a traveler of time and space.
Very much so, yeah.
And so this is all very ancient, right? You talk about a ritual taking place. I saw it happen, man. They came at me as well, because they knew what was about to happen. They knew what was coming, and this is what everything has been leading up to. I don't know the full essence of who I am or what I'm capable of yet. You know what I'm saying? But there's just too much evidence and confirmation to deny what is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
And when these battles take place, there's been negotiations that have happened, I'll say, on higher realms since then. I've been a part of. I'm part of the councils on higher realms. So was Max. So are some of us. I think you two are as well. Because in truth, the wisdom councils are all meant to manifest here in the third dimension, as above, so below.
Yep. That's what we're doing.
That's what the whole process of this is. And they don't want certain people communicating. They don't want certain people coming out and you know, on tag team. And it's like, okay, it's like we have, you know, we're going three ways here. You know, we're like a triple fucking threat here. And then you got some panels coming on. People got like, you know, 5 or 6 people, you know, some got more. That's getting a bit excessive. You know, these little cell groups and these cell conversations, boom, it's putting this, you know, initiative out, right? So what happened to Max is very, very fucking unfortunate. I wept, and he knew who I was. I knew who he was, and then it's like we had a chance to be able to connect. He was over in the UK. I'm over in the States. We all are where we are. You know, with the advent of everything that's going on, it's coming together even more. You know what I'm saying? And not in some like hive mind, you know, hierarchy fucking way. It's a round table, right?
Yeah.
Like the Knights of the Round Table shit. and we allow truth to be the master, because truth is going to confirm for all of us, which obviously it is in this conversation as well. So, but yeah, the chaos magic that went out, and it's still kind of, lingering. I mean, right there, it's like you can tell right away, even going back to that time when that shit went down, who was hooked in and who wasn't. The ones that were, man, they lost it. And then they wanted to get all of us to fight one another.
Yeah.
To this, and I pulled back from all. I was like, man, this is fucking crazy. How do people not see what the hell just happened? It still blows my mind.
Well, it's a microcosm of the larger scale world where these things are playing out daily. Look at the elections last year.
Right.
Look at the psyche. Look at the psyche of the country, the U.S., in terms of how heavily fractured it is now over the traumas that came out. And yet what came out in the midst of all that were some very important revelations about our own system that has to do with ritual child abuse, pedophilia, and the absolute corruption of the system itself, stuck right in the face of the American people, who turned around and went, well, I need to vote for somebody. The language of victimization boomeranging.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of reverse psychology tactics that they use. Hollywood's one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Straight up, they're letting you know left and right what's really going down.
And yet, oddly enough, look at their economic model eroding by the week as the new media begins to eke away at their power structure.
Right.
Just as it did with the recording industry. Yeah.
At the same time, though, there's got to be people that are in alignment with the ultimate good, because there has been stuff coming out that's ironic, and it's like, okay, this is obviously going on there too, right? Hollywood, was what the dark ones used to make their wands out of.
Yeah, well, exactly. The waving of the wood, the
Hollywood magic, Disney magic. Who owns fucking Hollywood? Disney. They own all the media. So people are going to have to get into some level of everything that I'm getting at with the higher occult sciences if we're going to have a chance. Because the first layer that you come up against with the within your chakra system that's embedded around the core of the chakra, the first layer or the perimeter is the black magic. And then it goes into all these different layers, and then one of the main layers within the perimeter is the collective unconscious. Good luck with that. Good luck. You can't even deal with the first layer, which is black magic, and you want to talk about collective consciousness? We're all one. Yeah, fucking right. We're all one in context that we have been conditioned to be slaves, right? Because certain generations didn't catch it. You know what I'm saying? And it's not to say that it can't be caught, but it's like it has to happen now. It has to happen day to day. Keep going. Don't give up. Don't quit. You're going to get tired. You're going to get weary. You're going to want to quit. You're going to want to cave in. And that's why all of us need to be encouraging and empowering one another instead of ripping each other apart in these networks, man. Like imagine the energy that would go out if everybody had that state of mind.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is the aspect of guarding the fortress from within. And I don't think you would disagree with me in that we have been heavily infiltrated by paid agents and intelligence officers. And we have also, let's just say, smelled our own underwear a little too long. And some of us are very in love with ourselves. Sorry, my language is what it is tonight. It's just...
No, have at it, brother.
I just, having come off of nearly a month of dealing with what I consider to be some of the top tier infiltrators in this system, I'm willing to wield that sword pretty deftly at this point, even though I know that it does create divisions and I know that it introduces a certain note of discord within the communities, I'm also seeing, as a result of this recent schism, a great deal of solidarity coming together, where people have said, you know, somebody finally needed to say that. And this is not self-congratulatory. I got pulled into the vortex of a much bigger system in all this. But having said that, I think we need to keep our own system impeccable, clean. We need to check our own energies. We need to check the energies of each other and the people around us. And there has to be accountability within the communities.
Yes.
And it has to be, we should want that. We absolutely, you know, you should be able to say, you know, brother, I sense there's this thing here. Let's deal with this. That's the aspect of healing that most people don't want. That was actually what I saw in the church, was that everybody else wanted to follow the example that was given by Jesus. They wanted to pluck the splinter out of somebody else's eye while they had like a 9-foot beam coming out of their head.
Right.
You know, so
everybody else is wrong except me.
Yeah. And
that's narcissism, man.
Yes, it is.
People that aren't, you know, willing to take the heat. It's like there's a lot of people that can dish it, but they can't take it, man.
Yeah.
It's like once the true light shines on them and they got to face the mirror, it gets nasty. But that's what it all comes back to with this, because we can sit here and point the finger at the fallen Anu, the Illuminati. It ain't gonna change. The way it's going to change is when we start facing the mirror, when we start facing ourselves and detaching, taking back our power, not taking back our power, claiming our power.
Yeah.
Because they only have power, but the only power that they have is what we give them, because they themselves are not self-sustaining. They can't connect back to the higher like we can.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they need us to do that.
That's why there's such a war on for what I'm talking about. Because once people start tapping that, and they realize, oh my God, I'm more powerful than them.
Yep.
Game over.
That's it. They can't do any of the shit that they do without us.
What is the simplest way that we can convey these things to people? You know, because all of it is so complicated. You get into the grid works and, you know, the 9 veils and everything I'm going to unpack and stuff like that. It's so much to unpack. What I'm going to be doing, though, is giving people the map through all of this bullshit. That is what it's going to be about.
Yeah,
I'll talk about the grid works and everything that's going on, so that people have an idea of what to look out for. Because you got to watch the flanks. You got to have people that got your back, and watch the flanks, because this is a war, right?
Yeah.
And what did Sun Tzu say? Sun Tzu, one of the greatest generals of all time.
Mm-hmm.
If you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear any battle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the best way for us.
I think we know how the enemy operates, but do we know how we operate? That's the other half of the equation, I think, when it comes to where things are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, you asked what the best way to convey this is to people is, and I think the best way to convey it is just to model it ourselves, to be it, and to, you know, sort of live that with everything we do. Knowing ourselves, you know what I mean? Make that our primary, you know, endeavor, is to be completely in alignment with who we are. And
I actually think you hit on this earlier. We touched on it lightly. It's something that Emily and I and some other people have been talking about as well. To go into the complexities of explaining, you know, all the grid work and the 9 veils and all of the ritual and the initiations and all of that, that's overwhelming. The arts are the way that you begin to convey this. You bring back the arts, the communication with sound, the communication with vision, the communication of the dance.
Yep.
And you begin to work on the subconscious level of the psyche in such a way that stimulates the remembering. We're forgetting something. This is really critical. Most of our knowledge is the quickening of what we know inside of us that's been buried under the sands of ancient history. The things we need to know are the things we need to remember. Those are the child aspects, because the child coming in, as you pointed out earlier in this show, is the purest form of knowing. It's pre-verbal, it's pre-expression through the physicality, and it has not been conditioned into the 3D simulacrum that we're living in. And so I think it's important that we stimulate the knowing by using all the modalities of communications emanating from the arts. I mean, you talked about singing death metal earlier, and it was a form of music that I originally found repulsive, and eventually, because of my children, came to understand that this was an art form in terms of catharsis and the outworking of not just rage, but passion and actually beauty at a certain level, to the point where I could then listen to it with an appreciation. It's like, I know rap has been co-opted, hip hop, it's now hip hop, but there was purity.
It's all been co-opted.
So,
I mean,
even the death metal scene, I mean, the majority of what the content of what's in the lyrics, man, is completely fucking evil.
Oh yeah.
But that's that cathartic energy on the inverted principle. When you throw it on the upverse, it's a force and power to break through any fucking goddamn barrier, whatever. And that's why I love the hardcore scene, because a lot of the hardcore music, the lyrical content, which the music carries, by the way, it's not the music, it's the lyrics that go into the unconscious. But it's the beat, it's the music that drives that in. So with hardcore, it's very life inspiring, life giving. Bands like Madball and Hoods and Death Before Dishonor, some of the bands that I'm into, they talk about the corrupt system that we're dealing with, and so but it was all underground. It was all this underground like vibe, but it was very passionate and very cathartic, and it still is, what I'm saying. So that energy's out there, but then there's those that get into the conspiracies and they start studying. That's what happened to me. And then I start putting this shit in my lyrics, and people at the time weren't ready for the level that I was talking about, because it's getting into, all of the fallen and, what's really going on with the sorcery and, all this lower tier stuff that we're talking about, the geopolitical games that are going on. That's all lower tier, but because they take orders from the Brotherhood of the Snake themselves, and nobody knows who they are. People talk about Pendar, right? Who the fuck is this guy? Are these just titles, or is it disinformation to give us the illusion that these people have any sort of power, right? Because really, they are so unbelievably weak right now. Look at all that they have to do. Look at everything that they have to do to keep us locked down, just on a physical level, and then take it to the thought and emotion, right? Just on a physical level. It is unrelenting.
Yeah.
All of the things that they have to do. That is how powerful we really are.
Yeah. I always say, I can't imagine being that kind of being that spends all of its time worrying about controlling what someone else is doing. We must be super powerful if there's someone out there who's willing to spend all their time, trying to make sure that we don't do the one thing that they can't do. You know what I mean? So,
right. The one thing that they cannot do is connect back to the higher. Yeah. That's beyond all this.
And the other thing that they cannot do, and this is the delicate balance, they can't kill the host.
They're being given ironically, you guys, they're actually being given a chance. They're actually being given a chance. And that wasn't my fucking decision, because fuck them. I have no empathy. I have no sympathy for the devil, so to speak, at all. Ironically, it's ironic.
They're good. Yeah.
Some of them are kind of pondering.
From conversations I've been having and things that I've been seeing, I agree with you. I think there are some who are considering. I don't know if the term is switching teams or trying, or it's very strange, but I think that, yeah, they're being given a chance, and it'll be interesting to see the choices, going to be change or get the fuck out. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying when the waves of the higher force really start coming, and people haven't been gathering their own oil, so to speak, up until this point, they're going to probably experience what I did back in 2000. I've heard people say people are going to go crazy. Why are they going to go crazy though? Because of all of the toxic buildup within the chakra system that's astral infused, and it's like, and if people aren't burning, these fallen are going to have their feast, but at the same time, we can't. Those of us that know can't not say anything and shout it from the rooftops, and at least, give people the warning. It's not what I say. This isn't my truth. This is already being confirmed. I've already experienced it. I don't want certain people to have to go through that experience. But as far as the dark ones and the fallen, they're fucking done. They're seriously done. We just have to write it out now. They're done. They're already done. Their jurisdiction and cycle, it's done. Right now in 2017, done. We're right at the beginning of what could be if we catch it. So we got to stop giving them power. We have to stop seeing everything that's going on as something that we can't overcome.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have to hold our center and ride the wave, and if we do, it'll be good.
Right.
That's here.
I think it's a good place to kind of wrap it up. This kind of, I think, served as a real good introduction for your material, Seth, and the material from the people that you are working with. And it's a way for us to open up the larger conversation over this next year, certainly. You're invited back anytime, my brother,
awesome.
to speak to the things as they unravel.
Before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find you, your website and your channels and stuff?
Yes, the website is Black Earth Productions with a Z.com. If you go onto the website, you'll be able to find everything there. We have the blog, Apothekia, which is written by my beloved. She's got a new one coming out here in a little while. The services page is updated. If people are interested in the higher occult sciences and stuff like that, they can sign up for the full package session, which I'm actually giving a 30% off discount right now. And that also includes the Black Earth Productions library. And you guys, I have literally thousands upon thousands of books in PDF form that I'm compiling. That me and my network, we're all putting it together. And it's so that people will have access, not just the material with the higher occult sciences, but pretty much everything that has really been made occult that you can't find at your local bookstore. I mean, even some of the stuff that we're presenting is, directly, preserved by the Theosophical Society itself. So it's a lot. And already it's been very successful. Everyone that's set us up that wants to get into this sort of thing, the transformations have already begun to happen. And again, it all goes back to the first cosmic law. It's all state of mind. And really, really ask yourself, what is my state of consciousness really? How are my thought and emotion being manipulated, or am I really the master of it? That's the beginning steps with all this. They can also check out the YouTube channel. It's just Black Earth Productions on YouTube. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me directly, you can send me a message at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Seth. It was an amazing conversation. We look forward to having you back many times, and we will assemble the council here.
Yes, I actually see a working that's beginning to form here, and it is indeed awesome. Thank you again, my brother, for coming on. It was good when I met you in the flesh, and it has been awesome for the last 2 hours to sit down and share ideas, thoughts, and impressions, all of that. It's all good. Emily, you got anything you want to say?
That's all, man. It was an awesome conversation, and so glad we finally got to do this. And Yeah, I can't think of a way I'd rather spend my Tuesday evening. So
Exactly. That's going to do it for this time. This is Off Planet Radio. The website is offplanetradio.com. I'm Randy Maugans with Emily Moyer. The truth that's out there is inside you. Keep dancing like nobody's watching. We'll be back with another show very soon. Good night.